I've always believed that life is a series of carefully constructed moments, like a house of cards, delicate, intentional, beautiful in its fragility. My life with Eleanor was just that, a masterpiece of shared dreams, quiet mornings, and the kind of love that felt like it could weather any storm. We'd been married for 12 years, and I thought I knew every inch of her. Every laugh line around her eyes, every quirk in her smile when she was hiding a secret, every sigh she let out when she thought I wasn't listening. But I was wrong. You can live with someone, share a bed, a home, a life, and still miss the cracks forming beneath the surface. My name is Daniel Carver, and I'm a structural engineer. My work is about precision, calculating the weight a bridge can bear, the force a beam can withstand before it buckles. I've spent my career ensuring things hold together under pressure. Maybe that's why it took me so long to notice my own foundation crumbling. Eleanor was my constant, my North Star. She was a freelance graphic designer, always hunched over her tablet in our cozy Seattle home, her auburn hair falling in loose waves over her shoulders as she worked. She had this way of tilting her head when she was deep in thought, like she was listening to some melody only she could hear. I loved that about her. I loved everything about her. Our life wasn't perfect, but it was ours. We had a small craftsman house in Capitol Hill, with creaky hardwood floors and a backyard that was more weeds than grass. We'd talk about fixing it up someday, planting a garden, maybe getting a dog, but we were always too busy, too caught up in the rhythm of our days. Eleanor's work kept her tethered to her studio, a sunlit corner of our living room where she'd lose herself in color palettes and client deadlines. I'd come home from the office, my briefcase stuffed with blueprints, and she'd greet me with a glass of wine and a kiss that tasted like peppermint from the gum she chewed obsessively. We were happy, or so I thought. The first hint of something wrong came in late September, when the air in Seattle turned crisp and the leaves started to burn red and gold. I'd been working late on a project, a pedestrian bridge for a new park downtown, and I'd gotten into the habit of texting Eleanor when I was on my way home. She'd always reply with something playful. "Hurry up, I'm starving for pizza," or "bring ice cream," or "you're sleeping on the couch." But one night, my text went unanswered. I didn't think much of it at first. She was probably caught up in a design, headphones on, oblivious to the world. But when I got home, the house was dark. No warm glow from her studio, no music drifting from the kitchen. Just silence. "Eleanor," I called, setting my keys on the hall table. No answer. I checked the living room, the kitchen, even the backyard, half expecting to find her sketching under the stars like she sometimes did when inspiration struck. But she wasn't there. Her car was in the driveway, her purse on the counter, her phone nowhere in sight. I tried calling her, but it went straight to voicemail. A prickle of unease crept up my spine, but I told myself she'd probably gone for a walk, maybe to clear her head after a long day. An hour later, she came through the door, her cheeks flushed, her hair slightly mussed. "Hey, sorry," she said, kicking off her shoes. "I went for a run. Needed to shake off some stress." "A run?" I frowned. Eleanor wasn't a runner. She'd always said she hated it. Too much impact on her knees, too much effort for too little reward. "Since when do you run?" She laughed a little too brightly. "Since I decided I need to get in shape before I turn 40 and my metabolism betrays me." She crossed the room, kissed me on the cheek, and headed for the kitchen. "Want some tea? I'm making chamomile." I watched her move, the familiar sway of her hips, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear. Something felt off, but I couldn't put my finger on it. "You didn't take your phone," I said, following her. I was worried. "Oh, crap. I forgot it." She glanced at the counter where her phone now sat, as if noticing it for the first time. "Sorry, babe. I didn't mean to freak you out." "It's fine," I said, though it wasn't. The unease lingered, a faint hum in the back of my mind, but I pushed it down. Eleanor was my wife. She wouldn't lie to me. Over the next few weeks, the cracks grew harder to ignore. She started staying out later, claiming client meetings or drinks with friends I'd never met. She'd always been social, but these outings felt different, vague, unmoored from the details she used to share so freely. Her phone, once an afterthought left on the counter or tossed on the couch, was now glued to her hand. She'd angle the screen away when I walked by, her fingers moving quickly to lock it before I could see what she was doing. Once, when I asked who she was texting, she said it was a client, but her voice had a slight tremor, like she was caught off guard. I started paying attention to the little things. The way she'd changed the subject when I asked about her day. The new perfume she wore, sharp and musky. Nothing like the soft floral scent she'd used for years. The way she'd linger in the shower, as if washing away something I couldn't see. I told myself I was being paranoid. Marriages go through phases, don't they? People change, routines shift. But the hum in my mind grew louder, a warning I couldn't silence. One evening in early October, I came home early. The bridge project was ahead of schedule, and I decided to surprise Eleanor with takeout from her favorite Thai place. I imagined us curled up on the couch, sharing pad see ew and laughing about nothing, the way we used to. But when I opened the door, I heard voices. Eleanor's, low and intimate, and another, deeper, unmistakably male. My stomach twisted. I set the takeout bag on the counter and followed the sound to her studio. She was on the phone, her back to me, her voice soft and teasing in a way that made my chest tighten. "You're ridiculous," she said, laughing. "No, I can't tonight. He's home early this week." A pause. "Stop it, you know I want to. But, okay, tomorrow. Lunch." "Yes, I promise." I stood frozen in the doorway, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. She hadn't noticed me yet, too absorbed in her conversation. I cleared my throat, and she spun around, her eyes wide, her phone slipping from her hand to the floor. "Daniel," she gasped, scrambling to pick it up. "You're home early. Who was that?" My voice was calm, but it felt like a dam holding back a flood. "Oh, just a client." She tucked her phone into her pocket, her fingers trembling slightly. "There being a pain about this logo redesign. You know how it is." I didn't believe her, not for a second. But I didn't push, not then. I nodded, forced a smile, and said, "Thai for dinner. You hungry?" She smiled back, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Starving." That night, as we ate in silence, I watched her. The way she avoided my gaze, the way she pushed her food around her plate instead of eating it. The hum in my mind had become a roar, and I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. Something was wrong. Terribly, horribly wrong. The next morning, I did something I'd never thought I'd do. I waited until Eleanor left for her client meeting and checked her phone. She'd left it on the charger, a rare lapse in her newfound vigilance. My hands shook as I unlocked it. Her passcode was still our anniversary, a small mercy that made my heart ache. I opened her messages, scrolling past the usual threads with friends and family, until I found one that stopped me cold. James. The name didn't mean anything to me at first, but the messages did. Dozens of them stretching back weeks. Flirty, intimate, laced with a familiarity that made my stomach churn. "Missed you last night," one said. "Can't wait to see you again," said another. There were photos, too. Eleanor in a dress I didn't recognize, her smile radiant, her eyes sparkling in a way they hadn't for me in months. And then a selfie of her with a man. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair and a smug grin that made me want to punch something. They were close, too close, their faces pressed together as if they shared a secret the rest of the world wasn't privy to. I felt like I was falling, the ground dropping out from under me. My wife, my Eleanor, was cheating on me. The truth was a knife in my chest, twisting with every breath. I wanted to confront her, to scream, to demand answers. But I didn't. Not yet. I needed to know more. I needed to understand how deep this betrayal ran. I started digging. It wasn't hard to find James. His name was James Whitaker, a real estate developer who'd hired Eleanor to design a logo for his latest project, a luxury condo complex downtown. A quick search on LinkedIn revealed his face, the same one from the selfie. He was everything I wasn't. Polished, charismatic, the kind of man who walked into a room and owned it. I found his Instagram, his ex-profile, his polished website with testimonials about his visionary approach to urban development. Every post, every photo, felt like a taunt. I cross-referenced Eleanor's calendar with the messages. Her client meetings lined up perfectly with their conversations. Lunches, coffee dates, late-night work sessions at his office. My mind raced with images I didn't want to see. Her in his arms, her laughing at his jokes, her sharing parts of herself that were supposed to be mine alone. The betrayal wasn't just emotional. It was physical, visceral, a violation of everything we'd built together. I didn't confront her that day, or the next. Couldn't. The anger was there, simmering, but so was the pain, raw and overwhelming. I needed time to process, to plan. I wasn't the kind of man who acted on impulse. I was an engineer. I analyzed, I calculated, I built solutions. And that's what I would do. I would build a solution to this. But first, I needed to know everything. I installed a tracking app on her phone, hidden in a system update she'd never notice. I started checking her emails, her search history, her bank statements. Every discovery was a fresh wound. A receipt for a hotel room, a playlist she'd made for him, a cryptic note in her calendar about a weekend away. The evidence piled up, undeniable, suffocating. My wife was living a double life, and I was the fool who hadn't seen it coming. By mid-October, I knew enough. James wasn't just a fling. He was a fixture in her life, someone she saw regularly, someone she cared about. The messages were full of promises. Weekends in Napa, a future where they could be together openly. She hadn't left me yet, but she was planning to. I could feel it in the way she distanced herself, the way her touches felt mechanical, her smiles forced. I didn't sleep much those days. I'd lie awake next to her, listening to her breathe, wondering how she could sleep so soundly with the weight of her lies. I wanted to shake her, to demand why she'd done this, why I wasn't enough. But I didn't. Instead, I started planning. Not just a confrontation, but something bigger. Something that would make her feel the pain she'd inflicted on me. Something that would ruin James Whittaker the way he'd ruined my life. The house of cards was falling, and I wasn't going to let it collapse quietly. The days bled into weeks, each one a slow, grinding descent into a world I barely recognized. My home, once a sanctuary, now felt like a stage where Eleanor and I performed our roles, husband and wife, smiling through the motions while the truth festered beneath. I went to work, reviewed blueprints, shook hands with clients, and nodded at their small talk. But my mind was elsewhere, consumed by the betrayal I carried like a stone in my chest. Eleanor's affair with James Whittaker wasn't just a wound. It was a fire, and I was stoking it, letting it grow until I could wield it against them both. I'm Daniel Carver, the man who builds things that last. Bridges, towers, foundations. My life's work is about creating structures that endure. But now, I was crafting something else. A plan, meticulous and unyielding, designed not to build but to destroy. I didn't want to just confront Eleanor or walk away. That would be too easy, too fleeting. I wanted them to feel the weight of their choices, to lose something as precious as what they'd taken from me. Revenge, I learned, wasn't about rage. It was about precision, about finding the fault lines in their lives and pressing until they cracked. The tracking app on Eleanor's phone became my window into her world. Every text, every call, every step she took painted a picture of her affair. She met James at least twice a week. Lunches at upscale bistros downtown, coffee at a quaint shop in Fremont, late afternoons at his sleek office in Belltown. Sometimes, they'd disappear for hours, their locations pinging at boutique hotels or his waterfront condo. Each notification was a fresh cut, but I forced myself to study them, to memorize the patterns. Knowledge was power, and I was arming myself for what was to come. I dug deeper into James Whittaker. He was 42, divorced, no kids, with a reputation as a charming dealmaker in Seattle's real estate scene. His company, Whittaker Properties, was behind several high-profile projects. Condos, office towers, a waterfront redevelopment that had city officials fawning. His Instagram was a curated showcase of success. Yacht parties, charity galas, candid shots of him in tailored suits, grinning like he owned the world. But beneath the polish I found cracks. A lawsuit from a former business partner, settled out of court. Whispers on X about shady financing for his latest project. A divorce settlement that left his ex-wife with half his assets. He wasn't invincible, and that gave me hope. Eleanor, meanwhile, was slipping further away. She'd always been warm, tactile, quick to laugh. But now she was distant, her affection perfunctory. She'd kiss me goodnight, but her lips barely grazed my cheek. She'd sit across from me at dinner, scrolling her phone, answering my questions with vague murmurs. Once, I caught her staring out the window, her expression soft and far away, and I knew she wasn't thinking of me. She was thinking of him, the man who'd stolen her heart, her time, her loyalty. I started testing her, probing for guilt. "You seem distracted lately?" I said one evening, pouring her a glass of wine. "Everything okay?" She glanced up, startled, then smiled. "Just work stress. You know how clients can be." "Which client?" I pressed, keeping my tone light. "That logo project still giving you trouble?" "Yeah, exactly." She sipped her wine, her eyes darting away. "It's a big one. Lots of revisions." I nodded, swallowing the bile in my throat. She was lying, effortlessly, and I hated how good she'd gotten at it. But I didn't call her out. Not yet. I needed more evidence, more leverage, more time to build my plan. The first piece fell into place by accident. I was at a city planning meeting for the pedestrian bridge project when I overheard two council members discussing Whitaker's waterfront redevelopment. "He's cutting corners again," one muttered. "If the permits don't go through, he's screwed." My ears pricked up. I lingered after the meeting, striking up a casual conversation with one of them, a grizzled planner named Tom who'd known me for years. "Sounds like Whitaker's project is shaky," I said, offering him a coffee. Tom snorted. "Shaky's generous. He's over-leveraged, banking on tax breaks that might not come. Plus, there's talk of an audit. Guys playing with fire." I filed that away, my mind racing. An audit could expose financial irregularities, derail his project, maybe even bankrupt him. But I needed specifics. I started digging online, scouring public records, ex-posts, anything that might point to vulnerabilities. I found a thread on a local real estate forum where an anonymous poster, likely a disgruntled employee, hinted at Whitaker fudging numbers to secure loans. It wasn't much, but it was a start. I also began tailing Eleanor discreetly. I'd leave work early, park a block from her meeting spots, and watch. It was surreal, seeing my wife through a stranger's lens. Her laughter, her gestures, the way she leaned into James when they thought no one was looking. One afternoon, at a cafe in Fremont, I saw them kiss. Not a peck, but a deep, hungry kiss that made my stomach lurch. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white, but I didn't storm in. I took photos instead, my hands steady despite the storm inside me. Evidence, I told myself. You need evidence. The second piece of my plan came from an unexpected source. Eleanor's best friend, Claire. Claire was a bubbly realtor who'd known Eleanor since college. She'd always been friendly to me, but I sensed she knew more than she let on. One evening, I invited her over for dinner, claiming Eleanor was swamped and needed a break. Eleanor raised an eyebrow but didn't object. Over lasagna, I steered the conversation to work, then to clients, then to James. Eleanor mentioned a real estate guy she's working with, I said casually. "Whitaker, I think. You know him?" Claire's fork paused midair, her eyes flickering with something. Guilt, maybe, or unease. "Oh yeah, James Whitaker. Big name in the industry. I've met him at a few events. Seems like a smooth talker," I said, watching her closely. "Eleanor's been spending a lot of time on his project." Claire glanced at Eleanor, who was suddenly very focused on her plate. "Well, he's demanding," Claire said carefully. "But Eleanor's handling it like a pro." I smiled, but my mind was screaming. Claire knew. Maybe not everything, but enough to be uncomfortable. I decided to lean on her later, privately, to see what she'd spill. That night, after Claire left, Eleanor was quieter than usual. She washed dishes while I dried, the silence heavy between us. "You okay?" I asked, testing her again. "Fine," she said, not looking at me. just tired. I wanted to grab her, shake her, demand the truth, but I didn't. Instead, I said, "I'm here if you need to talk." She nodded, her shoulders tense, and I knew she wouldn't. The plan took shape over the next few weeks. I contacted a private investigator, a grizzled ex-cop named Ray who specialized in corporate espionage. I didn't tell him about the affair, just that I suspected Whitaker of shady dealings and needed dirt. Ray didn't ask questions. He took my deposit and got to work. Within days, he sent me a preliminary report. Whitaker's company was indeed over-leveraged, with loans tied to offshore accounts that raised red flags. There were also rumors of bribes to city officials to fast-track permits. Ray promised more, and I told him to dig as deep as he could. For Eleanor, I needed something different. Confronting her would only give her a chance to lie or leave. I wanted her to face consequences, to lose something she valued as much as our marriage. Her career was her pride, her identity. She'd built her freelance business from scratch, earning a reputation for stunning designs and fierce independence. If I could undermine that, expose her affair in a way that tainted her professionally, it would hurt more than any shouting match. I started by hacking her email, not hard, since she used the same password for everything. I found her correspondence with James, including invoices for his logo project. The amounts were inflated, far more than her usual rates, and the payments came from a shell company tied to Whitaker's firm. It looked like a kickback scheme, or at least something shady enough to raise eyebrows. I saved everything, building a dossier that could ruin them both. I also reached out to Claire again, this time alone. I met her at a bar, claiming I was worried about Eleanor's stress. "She's been different," I said, nursing a beer. "Distant. I'm scared she's in over her head with this Whitaker guy." Claire fidgeted, her eyes avoiding mine. "She's fine, Daniel. Just busy." "Claire," I said softly, leaning in. "If you know something, tell me. I deserve to know." She bit her lip, then sighed. "Look, I don't know details, but she's been seeing him a lot, more than just work." I told her to be careful, but she says it's under control. My heart sank, even though I'd known the truth. Hearing it from Claire made it real, undeniable. "Thanks for being honest," I said, my voice steady despite the pain. "Don't tell her we talked." Claire nodded, looking guilty. I left the bar with another piece of my plan. Leverage over Eleanor's inner circle. If I needed to, I could use Claire's admission to isolate Eleanor further. By late November, the plan was nearly complete. Ray's final report was a goldmine. Bank records showing Whitaker's shell companies funneling money to city officials, emails hinting at tax evasion, even a whistleblower from his firm willing to talk. I passed the evidence to a contact at the Seattle Times, an investigative reporter I'd met through work. I did it anonymously using a burner email, but I made sure the trail led straight to Whitaker. If the story broke, his empire would crumble. For Eleanor, I crafted a more personal blow. I compiled her emails, texts, and photos with James, along with the inflated invoices, into a file. I planned to send it to her top clients, her professional network, even her design community's online forum. The affair would be public, her reputation shattered. She'd lose contracts, credibility, maybe even her passion for her work. It was cruel, yes, but no crueler than her betrayal. I set a date, December 10th. Whitaker's big gala for the waterfront project was that night. A glitzy event where he'd schmooze investors and city officials. Eleanor was invited, of course. She'd designed the promotional materials. I'd leaked the story to the Times that morning, ensuring it hit just as the gala began. Simultaneously, I'd send the file on Eleanor to her network. They'd both be blindsided, their worlds collapsing in real time. But as the date approached, doubts crept in. I loved Eleanor, despite everything. Could I really destroy her? And what about me? Would this revenge heal me, or just leave me emptier? I lay awake at night, wrestling with the questions. But the pain of her affair always won out. She'd chosen James. She'd chosen to break us. She didn't deserve mercy. The morning of December 10th dawned gray and cold, Seattle's winter in full force. Eleanor was up early, humming as she got ready for the gala. She wore a sapphire dress that hugged her curves, her hair swept up, her eyes bright with anticipation. "You sure you don't want to come?" she asked, applying lipstick in the mirror. "Work's crazy." I lied, my voice calm. "Have fun, though. You look amazing." She smiled, oblivious to the storm I was about to unleash. "Thanks, babe. I'll be home late." As she left, I opened my laptop, my finger hovering over the send button. The Times email was ready, the file on Eleanor queued up. One click and their lives would implode. My heart pounded, but my resolve held. This wasn't just revenge, it was justice. I pressed send. The moment I pressed send, a weight lifted, but it was replaced by something heavier. A cold, hollow ache that settled in my chest. I'd set the wheels in motion, and there was no turning back. The Seattle Times would receive the anonymous tip about James Whittaker's shady dealings by noon. Time to hit their newsroom just as reporters scrambled for evening deadlines. The file on Eleanor, with its damning emails, texts, and photos, was already pinging inboxes across her professional network. Clients, colleagues, the design forum where she'd built her reputation. By tonight, as she sipped champagne at Whittaker's gala, their worlds would be unraveling. I should have felt triumphant, but all I felt was the slow burn of a fire I'd started, knowing it would consume me too. I'm Daniel Carver, the man who calculates risks, who builds structures to withstand storms. But this wasn't engineering. This was chaos, deliberate and precise, and I was its architect. I'd spent weeks planning this revenge, mapping every detail like a blueprint for a bridge. Now, as the day unfolded, I watched from the sidelines, waiting for the collapse. Eleanor left for the gala at 6, her sapphire dress catching the light as she kissed me goodbye. "Don't wait up," she said, her voice light, oblivious to the storm I'd unleashed. I nodded, forcing a smile, and watched her car disappear down the street. The house felt emptier than ever, the silence a reminder of what we'd lost. I poured a whiskey, sat at the kitchen table, and opened my laptop to monitor the fallout. The first sign came at 7:15 p.m. A breaking news alert from the Seattle Times. Asterisk, prominent developer James Whittaker faces allegations of financial misconduct. Asterisk, the article was sparse, a teaser for a deeper investigation to come, but it named Whittaker's shell companies and hinted at bribes to city officials. X was already buzzing, with local journalists and anonymous posters speculating about the scope of the scandal. I scrolled through the posts, my pulse quickening as the narrative took shape. "Whittaker's done," one user wrote. "This is gonna tank his waterfront project." Another posted a meme of a sinking ship with Whittaker's face photoshopped onto it. I allowed myself a small, bitter smile. The first pillar of his empire was cracking. I checked Eleanor's email next, using the backdoor I'd installed to access her account. Her inbox was a war zone. Messages from clients, terse and professional, asking for clarification about concerning information they'd received. A thread on the design forum had exploded, with users debating whether Eleanor's unprofessional conduct warranted blacklisting her from future projects. One post, from a longtime client, cut deep, asterisk, "I trusted her work, but this changes everything. Mixing personal and professional like that is a deal breaker." Asterisk, I imagined Eleanor at the gala, her phone lighting up with notifications, her face paling as she realized her career was imploding. Part of me wanted to be there to see her expression, but I stayed put. This was her punishment, and I didn't need to witness it to know it would hurt. I refreshed X again, searching for mentions of the gala. A local influencer had posted photos from the event. Glittering chandeliers, tuxedoed waiters, Whittaker in a tailored suit, grinning like he hadn't a care in the world. Eleanor was in one shot, her arm linked with his, her smile radiant but strained. I zoomed in, studying her face. Did she know yet? Had the whispers reached her? I imagined the moment she'd check her phone, the moment her world would tilt. I wanted her to feel what I'd felt. The shock, the betrayal, the slow realization that everything you thought was solid was crumbling. By 9 p.m., the Times published a follow-up. Asterisk, whistleblower alleges Whittaker used offshore accounts to evade taxes. Asterisk, the article cited my anonymous tip, backed by Ray's evidence, Bank records, emails, the whistleblower's testimony. It was enough to trigger an audit, maybe even a criminal investigation. X was on fire now, with hashtags like #WhitakerScandal trending locally. A city council member posted a statement distancing herself from Whitaker, promising a review of his permits. Investors were pulling out, according to a finance blog. His empire wasn't just cracking, it was collapsing. I leaned back in my chair, the whiskey burning my throat. This was what I'd wanted, wasn't it? Whitaker ruined, his reputation in tatters, his projects stalled. Eleanor exposed, her career hanging by a thread. But the victory felt hollow. I kept seeing her face in that gala photo, the way she'd leaned into him. I kept hearing her voice, soft and teasing, from that phone call months ago. I kept feeling the knife of her betrayal, twisting deeper with every memory. My phone buzzed at 10:30. It was Claire, Eleanor's friend. I hesitated, then answered. "Daniel," she said, her voice tight. "What the hell did you do? What are you talking about?" I kept my tone neutral, though my heart raced. "Don't play dumb. Eleanor's a mess. She's at the gala, and her phone's blowing up. Clients, colleagues, everyone's talking about some email with her and James. She knows it was you." I swallowed, my mouth dry. "She told you that?" "She didn't have to. She's freaking out, saying someone's trying to ruin her. And I know you talked to me about James. You put this together, didn't you?" I didn't answer right away. Claire's accusation hung in the air, a challenge I wasn't ready to meet. "She made her choices, Claire," I said finally. "She's the one who broke our marriage." Claire sighed, her voice softening. "I get that you're hurt, Daniel, but this is brutal. She's losing everything." "Good," I said, and hung up before she could respond. But the word felt wrong, heavy. Good? Was it good that the woman I'd loved for 12 years was crumbling? Was it good that I'd orchestrated it? I poured another whiskey, my hands shaking. At midnight, Eleanor came home. I heard her key in the lock, the door creaking open, her heels clicking on the hardwood. She didn't call out for me, didn't say a word. I stayed in the kitchen, waiting. She appeared in the doorway, her dress wrinkled, her makeup smudged from tears. Her eyes, those hazel eyes I'd once thought held my future, were red and raw. "You did this?" she said, her voice low, trembling with rage and pain. "You sent that email. You ruined me." I didn't flinch. "You ruined us first." She stared at me, her lips parting as if to argue, then closing. She sank into a chair, her hands covering her face. "How did you know?" she whispered. "I'm not an idiot, Eleanor. The late nights, the lies, the phone calls. I saw you with him. I read your messages. I know everything." She looked up, her eyes searching mine. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did. James was there, and don't." I cut her off, my voice sharp. "Don't make excuses. You chose him. You chose to lie, to sneak around, to throw away 12 years for some sleazy developer." "He's not sleazy," she snapped, then caught herself. "I mean, he wasn't just some fling, Daniel. I cared about him. I still do." The words hit like a punch, stealing my breath. I'd known, of course, but hearing her admit it, hearing her defend him, was a fresh kind of hell. "You love him?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She hesitated, then nodded. "I think so. I'm sorry." I stood, my chair scraping against the floor. "You're sorry? You think that fixes this? You think it erases the lies, the betrayal, the way you made me feel like nothing?" "I didn't mean to hurt you," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I was going to tell you. I was going to leave." "Leave?" I laughed, a harsh, broken sound. "You were going to leave me for him? And what? Live happily ever after while I pick up the pieces?" She didn't answer, just looked away, her shoulders shaking. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to make her feel the depth of my pain. But I didn't. I'd already struck my blow, and it was landing harder than I'd imagined. "Get out," I said, my voice cold. "Pack a bag and go. I don't care where. Just don't be here when I wake up." "Daniel, please," she started, but I held up a hand. "Go." She stood, unsteady, and walked to our bedroom. I heard drawers opening, the rustle of clothes, the soft sob she tried to muffle. 20 minutes later, she was gone, the door clicking shut behind her. The house was silent again, but it wasn't peaceful. It was a tomb, filled with the ghosts of what we'd been. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the table, staring at the whiskey bottle, replaying everything. Her lies, my revenge, the look in her eyes when she admitted she loved him. By morning, X was flooded with updates. Whitaker's gala had ended in chaos, investors pulling out, reporters swarming. His company was under investigation, his reputation in ruins. Eleanor's name was trending too, her affair with Whitaker a juicy footnote in the scandal. Her clients had dropped her, the design forum had banned her, and her career was effectively over. I'd won. I'd destroyed them both, just as I'd planned. But the victory was ashes in my mouth. I'd lost Eleanor, not just to James but to my own rage. I'd lost the life we'd built, the love I'd thought was unbreakable. I'd lost myself, somewhere in the meticulous cruelty of my revenge. Days later, I found a note she'd left on the counter, tucked under a coffee mug. Asterisk, I'm sorry, Daniel. I broke us, but you broke me too. I hope you find peace. Asterisk, I read it over and over, the words blurring through tears I hadn't realized I was shedding. Peace? I didn't know if I'd ever find it again. I sold the house a month later, unable to live in the echoes of our life. Whitaker's company folded, his assets seized, his name a byword for scandal. Eleanor moved to Portland, I heard, starting over with a new name, new work, a new life. I stayed in Seattle, building bridges, calculating loads, trying to rebuild myself. But some cracks can't be fixed. Some structures, no matter how carefully designed, collapse under the weight of their own flaws. I'd built my revenge with precision, but I hadn't calculated the cost to my own foundation. And now I was left with the ruins.